Yeah.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for coming to our meetup. What is it? June 20th? Yeah, it's up in the top right. Thank you for coming out. Some of you, it's your first meetup. Some of you, I've seen you several times. It's wonderful to see you again. Whoever you are, welcome. Thank you all for coming. You're super welcome here, super appreciated. It's a fantastic community. I am not Jeff Baumgardt. If you're looking at the recording thing, I am Will Klein. I'm one of the co-organizers, and this is Jeff Baumgardt. He's our main organizer now, and he's going to present tonight. But for now, I'm going to give him a little break and share a few talking points about what's going on in the community, besides welcoming you all here. So I was asking earlier, how did you hear about tonight's meetup? There are a lot of different answers. I'll just share. There's a couple ways, but definitely go to our website, reactdenver.com, to find all the ways. There's our Discord community, so you can find what's going on there. We post our events in there. We always have the ability to see what's our next meetup is here and quickly sign up right on the right here. And we also have an email newsletter that Jeff just started. That's something that we were sort of missing in the past, being able to get out just monthly updates of like, here's what's coming up, here's what's happening. So we're doing some work there to improve some communication. With that, I want to share a couple of things going on in the community. The first is there was a develop happy hour that happens second Tuesday of every month. So basically a week before this meetup. I actually met a couple of folks there last week who are here today, which is fantastic. So I think there's only a handful of meetups right now in Denver for developers. And there used to be, I don't know, a dozen or so. There were as many as 5 in the JavaScript space alone. And now I think there's 2. So things are a bit different. So it's good to like share what's going on. So develop happy hour is really good. That's all kinds of people, not just developers, and it's a happy hour at some brewery usually. So that's really good. Met some folks there last week and happy to see you. Another big announcement that's happening is the Denver Script meetup is one of the other awesome meetups in Denver that goes back years. And we're bringing it back starting next week on Wednesday. So denverscript.com is the website. You already signed up? Awesome. And there's already a meetup. They're still on meetup. And I'm also helping co-organize that as well. But we're having lightning talks next Wednesday. So we have 3 signups so far. I want to confirm with every single one of the speakers, but there's at least one speaker who is really, really, you don't want to miss. So I'll confirm with them before we share that. But please sign up if you have anything you want to talk about. 5 to 10 minutes. It could just be like what you're learning right now, what you're excited about, whatever. So it's a great chance to get started with speaking. We'll definitely do lightning talks here again in the future at some point. But yeah, so come give a lightning talk for Denver Script. And actually, regarding this meetup, we'd love to have a lightning talk every meetup, like one, just to kick things off would be really great. So we always have room for that. So go to denverscript.com if you want to look that up or go to meetup and find it. And last, I want to share 3 conferences going on. The first is quite close to us. It's in Utah and Salt Lake City, React Rally. I was last there 4 years ago now with Jeff and a couple other folks in this community. They're having it again, and it's in August. So their tickets are pretty affordable. It's just to hop over the mountains to Salt Lake, and that looks really good. This one's a little bit further away. React Advanced is in London. I actually haven't been there yet. I might go this year, working on trying to figure that out. But that's over the pond in London. That looks pretty good, and I met the organizers. They're really cool. They do a good job. Because I met them at the last React Summit in Amsterdam 2 weeks ago, and they're bringing their first React conference stateside to New York in November. So reactsummit.us is the website. So this is a new React conference. So now we'll have React Rally. There's also a Chain React Conf. It's up in the Pacific Northwest. And now we'll have React Summit, and this is going to be in New York this year. This is their first one in the States. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also seeing if I can make my way out there for this. Yeah, I think that's all the announcements I had. I will say that some of us are looking for work. Some of us are hiring. Like after the meetup, like talk to each other because this is an awesome group. I have made some amazing connections here, made some amazing opportunities. Like I've gotten jobs just from being here. and then like somebody's like, hey, like come work with me, and I've done it. And it's going great. So I'd love to see more of that. And with that, I'd like to welcome to the stage Jeff Baumgardt.
Hello. I got someone else to talk do the intros this time. It's only been me for like the last year doing the intro, and he does it a lot better than I do. And he's got a more professional camera than I do. Cool. All right, just checking. Zoom had something. I'm going to let's talk about state. Let's make sure I have right branch. So let me talk a little bit first about what's going on before I actually dive into this. State management. All of our apps are just an application of state, right? You log into Facebook, you're logged in. You have state, you have a cookie, you've got light mode, dark mode, which I don't think Facebook has, but that's your example. Like your application state is just a representation of the server state and databases and so on and so forth. So really, if you don't have any state, you have a static app, which is perfectly fine in a lot of cases. But I build applications, I don't build static websites. So we have to have state. State in a lot of boot camps is taught as use state. Congratulations, you know state. Yes, you do. Good job. Use state is fantastic. It does exactly what you need it to do. But who here has prop drilled a set state? 7 components, 8 components? Yeah. You start going, hopping component trees, going, where in the world does this thing come from? I have actually that particular prop network right now. There's state hooks everywhere. And trust me, it took me 6 hours today to trace down 1 line of code.
Oh my God.
So it can be messy. So state, what we're going to talk about is actually a number of alternatives to state. State management libraries are a thing. You've heard of Redux. I'm going to show you Redux. We're going to talk about Redux. And I have a few others, Recoil, Zustand, and hey, context. Let's write this from basics, not even use a library. Use what's already given to us. I did say MobX in my description. I really tried to come up with a MobX example that actually would work. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say my opinion on MobX. I'm going to avoid that one for now. If you have to learn it, you have to learn it and go for it. I couldn't learn it in the 2 hours that I had time of reading the various tutorials and what I had available to me quickly. So I'm not going to waste my time to try and teach you what I don't know. So what are we building? If you've ever seen the to-do MVC, you know what a to-do list. Let's get this started. Node run start. This is a to-do list. Very simple. I'm already on port 3000. Really? No. Hey, it's still running on 3000. Fantastic. Yeah. I am a designer. This is my best design ever.
I can relate to that.
Design awards.
It's got a button. It's got a button and the button's filled. So this is Material UI. So I can't take a whole ton of credit, but this is a to-do app. Write some notes. Hey. And yes, I can check it off as done. And I can remove it. So very simplistic app. I wanted to do something more than a counter, press, increment, decrement. That's too easy. I mean, this is pretty easy, but that's a little too easy. It doesn't really show you a shape of state. This is at least an array. So let's go, nope, that's Discord. Let's go back to it. That one. Go back in here. Okay, so here we've got our app. Yes, I can. I definitely can.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to terminals. All right. Around here.
Could you go one more level? The old one.
He also changed the font. Just kidding. Not joking.
Light mode. Okay. You know, I actually had that set up on a previous computer where I had two different modes because I did a lot of screen sharing with coworkers. So I would go into larger and change the fonts and whatnot. The only thing you can never take away from me is my monospace fonts. Like, I love my columns. I had someone that used very whimsical, not Comic Sans, but very flowy and not monospace, and I could not read. Like every time they're like, "Oh, I'm like, read your code, dude." So sorry. We're taking way too many pictures, my friend. So just quickly go through. I have that input that you see, and I have the list. So welcome to state. This is exactly what I just showed you. Use state, empty array, add to do, set to dos, toggle, and remove. Very dirty, quick, easy functions. No mutability here. Don't care. But this is what's bad. I got the to-dos here, and I shuttle the to-dos down there. I got this add to do that's up here, and I shuttle it down to the input. I even have this to-do list, which is taking those functions and then just passing them on yet again. So by the time you're all the way down to the item, like, what is this thing? And no, I don't have TypeScript. Unchange. That's a very good name of a function, right? Change what? Okay, so go back. This is a very simple set state using the previous state for, we'll call it immutability, but it's really not. That way I don't have to try and take the to-dos, create a new instance, clone it, go back and forth. Hey, fancy IDs, always guaranteed to be unique. I love that. So I am breaking things. I need to stop moving. Input, hey, more state. Input, button, handle, click. Pretty simple logical stuff. To do items is just a map of this. Ignore, this stuff. It's material UI to make it look pretty. Yes, I spent far more time making it look pretty than making it functional. I'm not a designer. And your remove button. Pretty straightforward. So let's talk about Redux. So this is the same exact version of what you saw, no changes right now. I've already installed all of the utilities I'm going to use because no one really wants to watch loading indicators, even your users. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my, we'll do Redux first. We're going to call this to do state. Cool. Empty files. We love empty files, right? nothing is more crippling than an empty file. It's like, write something.
In an interview.
Yeah, my interview definitely had that multiple times over multiple interviews. Not a good time. Anyway, I have my handy dandy notes because I'm lazy to memorize all this stuff, so I'm going to take notes. Fig store. Hey. Create slice. Cool. Those are the two I need. All right, so let's create this slice. So talk about Redux really quick. Redux, Dan Abramov introduced it, I would say 6 years ago, 7 years ago, for a presentation. He wrote Redux to give a presentation, not the other way around. Because he wanted to talk about time traveling history. So he wrote Redux just to do that. And now we've got all this. Now Redux has been taken up by Tim Dorr and Mark Erickson. Very awesome guys. Mark Erickson wears a giant badge with, like, not Homer Simpson, but a Simpsons character that represents him. He has a link to a post to tell you anything you ever need to know. That's a list I do not want to maintain. And just recently, V. Carl started following me on Twitter, which don't follow me on Twitter. I have nothing important to say. I literally tweet on React Denver and retweet myself. So it's me and Will are the only people on Twitter. So I let that one go out. Okay, so to do slice, sure. So we get this nice function from Redux Toolkit. Redux Toolkit came out, I want to say about 2 years ago. Massive undertaking to reduce boilerplate. If you ever saw Redux prior to a couple of years ago, you can see these reducer files, a couple hundred lines long, that is just switch statements, giant switch statements. It was fine, but people first complaint was boilerplate. It was boilerplate. It was very copy and paste, change the variables that you needed, move on with your life. But it was very tedious to maintain. Redux Toolkit takes a lot of that away. So let's give our slice a name, and we'll just call it to-dos. And we probably want some initial state, and I'll make it an empty array. Cool. Well, we still have reducers, unfortunately. But these are also the actions. So you just name the reducer was also going to be your action. So we'll say add to do. And this is a function that gets state and the action. Again, if you've ever played with Redux or even just use reducer, use reducer within React, state action, these weird payload things that are always interesting. So what do we want to do? What are we doing here? Well, we want to add. Let's do. I've got this really handy line of code that I already wrote. So because I am a terrible speller, I'm just going to go ahead and say that. So we're going to say state, take the previous state, and we're going to take action is going to be payload action. I think that's right. We're going to find out. So I'll come back to this. I'm going to create the store itself. Export cost. State, sure, equals configure store. And we just need the reducer. We're just going to call this the to-do slice dot reducer. Reducer or S, probably reducers. Last one I'm going to do just so I get that add to do. Slice actions. Whew. Okay, this is just getting me so I have access to that add to do function. Export. I am smart sometimes. Not all the time. Okay. So we'll come back and add the toggle and whatnot here in a moment. We need to do something here. And that's our handy dandy provider. React Redux. It's a store. We'll call this the to-do store. So next to my keyboard. Import. Let's go here from to state. Okay, so now I should have a store. I'm going to delete this. I'm also going to delete this. Okay, all the state's gone. What do I do? Start deleting stuff. I mean, there's my app. All right. Import dispatch. Call const dispatch. Dispatch. Import. To do state. Pass in the store. Okay, cool. So my prettier config is messed up. Oh well. This add new to do is no longer a prop. It's gone. So we're going to say dispatch. Store, we're going to call the add to do. The new to do. New to do is a string that we entered. Go ahead and delete this line. Cool. So in theory, I'm right. And it's not going to be right yet. I just wrote this. This. That. Just call these no offs for a second. Okay. Maybe this will work now. Yeah. Add to do is undefined. Okay, I definitely did something wrong. All right, I'll come back to that. So we'll dispatch the add to do function. Add to do is the action state or slice action from state. And this dispatch thing. Dispatch is weird. I'm not a fan of dispatch. Now it's just functions, wrapping functions, high order functions. We love higher order functions, don't we? To do item, we'll quickly do this as import, use selector. No, use dispatch. Const. Dispatch. Use dispatch. Import stuff from, we'll call it toggle to do, and remove to do. But I haven't written those yet, so make believe time. we love make believe time. So back over here, we're just gonna say dispatch toggle to do with the got too many of those. Cool. Dispatch move to do with to do ID. So what would those look like? To do. It takes state and action. It's going to return state dot. How do you think we're going to toggle? So many different ways we can do this. I like maps. Maps are my favorite thing in the world. Maps are super easy, right? So to do dot ID is equal to action dot payload. If so, great. Turn the to do and completed is not completed. To do dot completed, right? Otherwise, just return to do. No slice the state, update the thing, concat it all back together. Arrays suck. Like array mutations are annoying, and we came up with whole libraries like immutable.js just to handle array updates. And then you realize you just added 3 times performance lag just because you're like, everything's immutable now. So is this. All right, and remove to do. Guess what? State and action. State dot filter. To do dot ID is not equal to action dot payload. This is where the things get a little weird. It's not as easily expressed. Like, what is this action? And where does, like, this is the function, but I'm passing different things. And what does payload mean? That's the part I'm not a fan of in Redux. I hate to say it, but I'm not a fan of anyone when it comes to state setters. Everyone does it weird. So to-do list, this is the last one, import, use selector from I'm just going to cheat. I'm always good at that. I want to say const to do is going to be equal to use selector state. So this is annoying one. State is the reducer. I didn't name this reducer, so if I wanted to, I could say to-dos is that reducer. And if I do, then I just have to say state dot to-dos. So Redux is a single state tree. All of your state, every reducer you put into the store. So you can imagine you've user store, theme store, permissions, insert random piece of state. You get a very big state tree. The problem I have with Redux, one of the things I'm not a huge fan of, is every action gets the entire state tree. So when you go to modify state, you have access to all of the state. And so we call this the flux architecture, right? So you have state, you have actions, dispatchers, state updaters, and you have your state. Always in the big circle. So you have to return your entire state tree every action. So where this gets into performance issues, like animations, you want to update the position of a div on the screen as you're drawing it, and you're sending those state updates through Redux, it's gonna get choppy. Probably not the best idea to try to use a global state for animation work. We'll deal with it another time. I'm gonna undo this. I'm lazy. Cool. That's it. That's the to-do list. Got the to-do item. Gets the to-do from the to-do list. Don't forget your key. Now, we just saw it's not going to work anyway, which is fine. Because I cheated. Really? Yes. I know it would be overwritten. All right, let's look at this. Yep. Again, pretty small. We've got this provider, this context store. We're used to it for the most part. If you've ever used any other library associated with React, you probably have a context store. And so if you're like my last application, I had this giant tree. Those context. And then finally at the very end, children. Okay, simmer down. So let's look at the state. Here's what I did wrong. I was supposed to push. That's all I did wrong. Get the new to-do, set up an ID, Texas action payload, set it to false, obviously, pretty straightforward. Same thing here. I wrote this one a little differently this time around. I used a find operation instead of a map. It accomplishes the same goal, and remove just the same. Input, dispatch, add to do, item, dispatch, toggle, and remove. Really? Imported as store was not found in to-do state.
Do it like a control F5?
Store, audit store. Discard any changes just because. Okay. Was not found in to-do state. Possible exports are add to do and to-do store. Okay. All else fails. Kill your server. Webpack. Love to hate it sometimes. Wow, okay. So I really screwed something up here. I apologize. This was totally working last night.
It's because we're watching it.
Right.
That's,
Working on my
that's
logo.
how it does work,
Right.
mind you. Every time. Slice. The actions, that's the reducer. They are in fact exported. All right. Well,
You maybe do a get reset. Because there's extra files or.
yeah. To not waste a ton of time, we're gonna kind of move on. Sorry, but I don't want to. I don't have a whole ton of time to sit here and debug it. So we're gonna move on to context. This is one of my favorites. I love React context because there's no overhead. Like React is there. Just use what's available to you. So we're gonna go ahead and say to do state import create context, use context. Const to do context. Create context. Ta-da! I created context. All you have to do this. Use to do is equal to a function. Return use context of the to do context. Cool, I made myself a custom hook. All right, let's that. Okay, we need the actual important part here. So we'll call this the to do provider. We need this magic children because we want to actually render something underneath. I know I'm going to take the to do context dot provider, have some value that we'll set in a minute, and render children. That's great. What else is great? That's great too. Use state. And this, we're going to say to-dos. Add to-do. Toggle. Ta-da! I made a context. That's it. Back over here. Say import whatever we called it. Let's export it. And to-do grow. Clean up our things because I no longer need it. I can't see that part of my screen. To do input. Well, import use to do. State. Okay. const. To do, add new to do, or is it just add to do? Add to do, use to do, destructuring that function out, add to do. That's it. With unnecessary prop. Let's go to the list. Import use to do. Const to do's. To use to do. Read all the props. And I don't need this anymore. That's a lot shorter. To do item. Last one. Import. Use to do. Again, lovely hook now that we have access to it all. Delete these props, don't need them anymore. I'm going to say const toggle to do. To do. To do. And you have a much better keyboard at home.
You're typing way better than I could in front of
Uh-huh.
people, so.
Demo gods are never your friend. Like, this is true for interviews. When you're interviewing with someone, you type, my third grader can type better than me when it comes to live coding. Any other time of the day, I can just sit there and not even pay attention. Y'all are watching me, so now I'm worried about what I'm doing. All right. Let's open the terminal again. And not open so many terminals, kill that one. Kill that one. Hey, Webpack built. That's a good sign. That's even also a good sign.
Yeah.
Hey. Oh, yay. Yeah, I can remove them. Yay. Okay, that's context. Yay. And so you know I'm not cheating. Stuff. And context and looks exactly the same way, except in this one I didn't call it to do state. I called it to do context. Sue me. But it's the same exact thing. But that's context. That context is actually one of my favorites. The API is already something you're familiar with. You don't have to learn a whole new tool. But for some reason, we really love our tools. A lot of folks come up with tools that no longer exist at the company you're working for, and therefore you are damned to use their tool from henceforth. All right, recoil. Recoil is I actually really do like recoil. So, as always, to do state. I like separation. Import. This is good. You'll love this one. Atom. You want to see this state const? Well, even export. Export const to do atom. Sure. Atom. Sure. Let's give it a key because it's key in this one. To do's. And we'll give it the default of an empty array. That's my state. That's it. It's awesome, huh? Let's import the recoil root. Again, this is a provider. we're familiar with that now. So that state's interesting, right? Like there's no actions in it. There's nothing. Use recoils own. Use set recoil state. Say const. Set state is equal to use set recoil state with the to do atom. That. Now, here's where I have to do this now. Set state. My favorite thing. Input. Text is going to be new to do. Cool. There's your recoil. So now that function, the actual add, comes back to the component where it makes sense. The set state belongs to the component, not some artificially external piece that you're like, oh, what did I call it? Or what does this state look like? It's right here. So there's your to-do input. Did this already? No, I didn't. This. To-do list. Import. Use recoil. That. Value. Atom. That's still a lot better. We're just saying whatever's in this atom, the to-do atom, that's what I want. I want that state. Now let's go to the hard one. Import set recoil state. I'm going to do something even weird. Toggle. No. Set recoil state to atom and const toggle to do is equal to a function that I'm going to copy because I've already written this at least 2 or 3 times now. Ooh. This is for granted, we'll just do that. And that's your toggle const remove to do ID set state. I'll even write this one just for you by hand. I'll do this. ID not equal to, sorry, Jenny.
It's fine.
Not equal to ID. D. That's the one. Cool. Toggle to do. Remove to do. Again, we're bringing the actual state setters. Trackpad sometimes. Bringing the state setters back to the component. That's a short return. Oh,
Oh,
almost. On change is not a function. On change is not a function. Checkbox on change is not a function. Yes, yes, it is.
this has been my life for the last 2
I
weeks.
promise you on change is a function,
It's in the folder it's supposed to be in.
but we're gonna delete them. Props. Whew, not that much delete. Low refresh. Did I make Webpack explode again? That would be awesome. That would be the second time in one night that I've blown up. Are you done refreshing? Sorry, my computer has like 6 instances of Node running. And my work app is a mono. That is Python based.
Oh,
And last time I did a source lines, it was like 3 million files.
oh yeah.
So running Webpack just to start up the dev server takes about 5 minutes. I wish I was joking. All right. Can we get the change? Yes, we can get the change. Can we get removed? Yay! There's recoil. Recoil. I use recoil a lot in my last job. Recoil is a really nice tool. You don't have to use set recoil state and everything within your components. Like you can still externalize that in the state file. So I just created my own custom hooks that just happen to use internally, use recoil state, use set recoil state, and then exported them out myself. Probably don't need to do that. I actually like this way better, moving the actual state set state to the component where it matters. The problem I have is this. Like, this is super not expressive to me. Like, this is the entire state. Have a nice day. This is where you would add persistence layer and stuff like that if you wanted to create a subscription. Ooh, battery's low.
That's Jeff.
Nope, I got one right here. God, Apple has universal connectors based on most generations, not all. So we used a persistence XOR for local storage. So your user JWT token was stored in local state. So if you hit refresh, like your entire application wasn't going to go boom. And that's where you'd put it. It's something like the unstable effects, and then it's a function that, yeah, I'm not going to write it because it's recoil is I'm not gonna say is in beta. It's still in dev. It's out. It's doing very well. But there are still a lot of features that they're still working on, and the documentation really needs some love. The API docs are written by engineers, and to solve one problem, you go through about 7 pages.
Oh.
Not as bad as Google. Google's docs are extensive, but everywhere. All right. I'm going to things and stuff. I'm not actually committing these, so my repo is not going to actually have these. Okay, Zustand. This is the last one for the evening. I will shut up after this. I apologize. Let's go ahead and create to do store, to do state. import, create from. Just see, this is not even a destructured function. This is just straight up the default. Just called create, export, const, use to do. This is a function that gets set as an argument. State is empty. We just add our function, add to do. Get input, set, that gets a state. And we're going to state dot state dot do's dot seriously. If you like, it's the tactile. Like if you press too hard, it opens the dictionary. I'm very heavy-handed, apparently. We're gonna this one say return that. Say state. This is semicolon. All right, where is it? I don't see it. Oh, first of all. Semicolon. It's totally bothered me. And I had my note even. Okay, so let's leave that. Ta-da. So Zeuston, used to do store. It's a hook. Zeuston creates hooks. Show you what's even cooler in a second. This is a state object. I can add anything I want. And now that's on state, and it's a string. So if later else I want to come down here and say, okay, cool. I'm doing this remove. Then I'm going to say is food bar. Blah, that's it. So how do we actually use this? Well, that's my favorite part. There's no provider. No context.
What?
Yeah. There's no context. There's no wrapping of providers. There's no global state store that happens to own your entire tree. Fun part. Use today to do state store. I want the state. I want the add to do thing off the state. It happens to be a function. So there's your add to do. To-do list. I want the to-dos off of that object. Happens to be an array. Right? To-dos. It's an array. Here's the fun one. I even broke it out into array syntax just because I felt like having fun. You can easily do this as object syntax and just I can't see. I'm sorry. Okay, cool. Now it's an object structure. Ooh. Only keyword there is shallow, and you don't even need that. Shallow, it just makes it so if you have a nested state, more complex like this, I'm only grabbing toggle to do and remove to do from the root. So I don't need a deep comparison for use to do store, and Zeuston automatically does all of your dependency checking and shallow rendering and whatnot. So like, you don't have to think about, oh, I have to wrap this in a memo. You don't have to do that. You don't have to wrap dependency callbacks. So it's quite nice. You don't need this. Especially in this example, you really don't need it.
So if you don't use the shallow keyword, it's a deep comparison. But
It'll do a deep comparison of anything you pull out of the state. So since I'm pulling toggle to do and remove to do, it's doing a deep compare, but those are functions. There's nothing to compare. And it's already memoized from within create. So there's no harm here of invoking the same function and going, oh, we need to memoize that callback because for some weird reason. Don't need to do any of that. So this is what I alluded to earlier on Discord. Zeuston is great. It is absolutely fantastic and is now the one I'm promoting for work. This presentation, I'm kind of doing it again on camera and a little more official. That'll go to work. So I have to actually make things work this time when I go to do that. But they asked the state management for work is out of control. It's we're broken up into domains or teams. There are 60 UI developers, and boy, everyone's got an opinion. Fine. Each team, you get to do what you want. Fine. You know what? Go nuts. I've done a lot of context things, and already coworkers are going, wait, that's awesome. Because I'm not sending the hook value and setter down and down and down. What I did today was the value was set in a context, which was then passed to a hook. The result of that hook was then sent as input to another hook. And then that was state in yet a third hook, and that state was used in a callback. Right. I mean, yes. I would love to show you. I can't.
Please.
The headache that ensued was in one of the intermediate hooks was yet another callback that was, hey, handle click, set this thing in state, and then call this this further down hook. But because of batching in React, that set state and that click of the hook were in the same batch. Therefore, undefined. Yay. And I think I had 150 consoles in my code by the time I figured this out.
Wow.
And just like, I'm consoling the state of this hook and it's got exactly what I want. I go, as soon as I click it, it's undefined. It's right, like I can see it. Like the console, literally right before it shows, but no. So I fixed it, but very annoying. This, Zeuston. Oh. Zeuston is now my favorite, just because of how very simplistic it is. That create function is an object. Objects we know can be a key value pair of anything, including functions. So write your function. Set your state. And the lights go out. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. If I walk over here. I did it last time.
Over there.
Maybe not. Oh, well, slightly darker, you can still see me. Okay. That's all the ones I have for you. I tried to say I was going to be unopinionated about this going in and let you form your own opinions about which ones you like, which ones you don't like. I would say I didn't do that. I did give you my opinions. Context is probably my first go-to, just because it's there. It's already available to you. It's already using the same API you're used to using today. All the hooks are there, set state, use callback, use effect, all of those things. It's there. Have a nice day. Second one's going to be system. I think if you're going to go for a more global state and you want separate trees that are usable throughout your app and not having to wrap your app in yet another context, I think system is awesome. How it works, I haven't dug through the source code yet, so I don't know exactly how it's holding. It has to be namespaced. I'm not sure. Like magic at the moment. Recoil probably is my third. Recoil is great. Used it many times, but there's just a few ergonomic things that I just can't get around, and that's using their hooks to access your atom, but the atom is super small. But I didn't even go into selectors or anything else that Recoil does, which is awesome. You can get away with some really cool things in Atom, or Recoil. Didn't get into them. And then Redux. Redux is really good, right? It's too much for me. The global state tree, everything, every action is just too much in my opinion. The one thing I will note that if you do use Redux, don't push your API responses in the actual Redux tree unless it's something that you do need everywhere, like a user token. But if you're rendering a table on one page, please don't put your data in Redux. That's very expensive. All right. I've talked now for an hour. I apologize. Are there any questions that I could hopefully answer? Yes.
Is there a point, like an application, or is it just preference? Like, is there a point when you reach for one of these libraries over context, or is it simply preference?
It's definitely a scale problem, and it's also very much talking with your coworkers and your team to decide. I mean, you can use all of these in the same app. I probably wouldn't recommend it, but there's no one going to stop you from having Redux and Zustent in the same app. It's just bundle bloat, but that's whatever. I would say start with context, ideally, or insert a library you want to try. The way it's working for me is I have to write a proof of concept using one of tools, show how it makes the developer experience better, and a migration path. So like it's not just, hey, I want to use this and go for it. Like I got 60 UI developers that I have to answer to. Not a fan of that. Any other questions? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Which one do you think is the most widely used? Right.
Redux.
Why is it so popular? Like,
It was not the first, but it was the first predominant. Every job application I've seen for anyone that's Redux or React, Redux. Like same sentence, same title of if you know React, you know Redux. So it's one that you have to learn, even if you. Thanks, Will. They didn't like me apparently.
it just became popular because it was just one of the first. Like,
It was one of the first. The first was Nuclear JS. Nuclear JS, in fact, the very first React Denver talk 7 years ago was comparing Redux and Nuclear JS. Nuclear JS obviously hasn't made it, or it has, but it's nowhere near the size they would want it to be. MobX is pretty up there. So is RxJS. Both of those followed an observer pattern. If you're not familiar, it's kind of like a subscriptions where components will subscribe and observe the state and will re-render as that state changes. So you can change state somewhere else in the app and not have to worry about notifying the listeners. It just happens. It's really nice in theory, but I've never had an app where state was streaming like that, where like stuff was just changing on its own. Like, yes, I had a poller that would go out to the server and get an update, but that wasn't something that was affecting the entire app that I need to set state and have everything react to. Recoil is definitely nowhere near there yet. It's gaining traction. Recoil is brought to you by Meta, Facebook. Like it's a first class citizen in their tools. I don't know how much it's actually used within Facebook. Again, it's still in development. Zeusland is new, brand new, only a year old maybe. I just started hearing about it on Twitter a couple months ago, and this was my first attempt at it. And I felt like it worked really well out of the box. I literally just read their README on GitHub. I didn't even look for documentation. I just install Zeusland. Here's call it a hook because it is a hook, and then you just use it. Great. But yes, Redux is the fat man in the corner. Everyone.
I haven't really used it yet, but I look at it and just think why would I want to use this?
It's been around for so long, and it was heavily promoted so early on in React days that, I mean, it's lived with us with class components and higher order components. It made the transition to functional components with hooks. It's something that has lasted very well, and it's very well maintained and documented. I think that's probably the biggest hurdle for a lot of tools is documentation and getting people on board.
What is it giving you that context is not?
Didn't context come later?
Context did come later. Create context and whatnot is functional component land. We did everything with higher order components before, and weirdness. Like, honestly, I probably could not write a class component today if I had to. Like, component did update, component will update, component should update. I don't, which one of those is wrong? I don't remember. But thankfully, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I have exactly one class component in my app, and that's your air boundary. Because component did catch, it does not have a functional equivalent in functional components. You need that catch, the try catch of a class. Should you learn Redux begrudgingly? At least, Mark Erickson's got some great tutorials, like quick setup tutorials that are 20 minutes. You can also go down the deep end, go check out Egghead.io, and you can watch a 3-hour video on just Redux and how to migrate from React Redux to Redux Toolkit, and what's a thunk? Like, yeah, thunks were a thing. And sagas.
About that for
Yeah.
So about 10 minutes. But
Okay. So, all right, we're being kicked out, and we haven't had much chance to have community forum. So
Cake.
there is cake too. Yes. There's- It's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. 39.
Oh.
Super. I stopped carrying 20 years ago. I hit 21, I could go to a bar. 25, you could cross state lines in a rented vehicle. And also for men, like your insurance rates go down. That was it. I stopped carrying.
At 35, you can become a president.
35 or 25?
Oh, it's 35.
It's 35.
25 for a congressperson.
I think that's something that we've had enough old people in office that's all right. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to stop recording. So thank you for participating, and have a great rest of your evening.